What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. If you missed the last one, go check it out. We're back to work on the TDI swapped Tacoma. We almost got it fired up. The last video, we were having some starter issues. Good thing we got a new one on the way, the starter and the little starter adapter plate. But bad news, it's gonna be probably a couple weeks before we get it. So what I think I want to do today is I found a way around making this starter work. It's probably not gonna work for very long, but it might turn the motor over. I want to put the starter back in and see if this motor will turn over. We could bleed the oil system and the fuel system and potentially get it started in the meantime while we're waiting for the other starter to show up. So here's the starter. The issue I was having is this black plate here. That is a custom adapter plate and it was machined wrong. It's a little bit too shallow. So when you tighten these bolts holding it onto the starter, the Bendix won't turn. So what I have done is, that one's all the way loose, but there's that one and that one there. If I leave those just barely loose, it should technically work. This starter was pulling like 200 amps. I'm not sure if it's something to do with this. I did have this loose when I brought it to the parts store, had them test it. It was pulling a lot of amps, but it still worked. I think it might turn the motor over. I don't know. I want to throw it back in because it's not that hard. Let's throw this thing in the truck and see if it'll turn over. This thing is pretty much ready to go, like I said. So we got to bleed or prime the oil system, bleed the fuel system, and as far as I know, we're ready to start it. So let's throw the starter in. I'll probably not film a whole lot just because you're not going to be able to see what I'm doing anyway. But either way, let's get this in and see what it does. All right, we got the starter bolted in. You can see down there. Let's see if it works. I got the battery charger hooked up. Battery is completely charged, but I'm worried with that starter pulling so many amps, it's gonna kill the battery right away. But let's jump inside and see what it does. Whoa, there we go. All right, so I guess I'm going to crank this thing over like this. Make sure I still got the injectors. Yep, injectors are unplugged. So I'm going to crank it over a bit until I get fuel obviously up into the filter. And the main reason I have this disconnected so it won't start, because I want to pump oil from the oil pump. It's got to pump into the filter housing, fill that up, pump all the way over and fill the turbo up, because you don't want to start it dry and then hopefully pump oil to the top end. I did douse it with oil before I put the valve cover on, but some of that probably ran off by now. So we just want to make sure oil is pumped through the whole engine, and then we can plug it back in and see if it'll start. Another thing I'm going to do real quick too is I'm going to pull this. This is the Toyota oil pressure sensor. It's an 1/8 inch MPT adapter right there to, I think that's a 10 mil. But I'm gonna pull the sensor out and hook up a oil pressure gauge so that I know when I'm starting to build oil pressure here. Then we'll crank a little bit longer, and then if it does start, we can make sure that we have oil pressure, because I did do the oil pump, the balance shaft delete and everything in this motor. So it's got a whole brand new oil pump and everything. We want to make sure everything with that is good to go. So let's get that on right now. All right, we got the oil pressure gauge run up, hooked up, coming inside here. So I can sit here and crank it and watch that oil pressure. So I'm gonna crank till we start building pressure, and then I'll probably go a few more cranks after that just to make sure we get oil into the turbo. So let's crank her over and see what we do. Nothing yet. I'm gonna keep cranking. It's already dying. That's what I figured it'd probably happen with pulling so many amps. So I'm gonna let it sit for a little bit, crank it again, and I'll get back to you guys once we start building some pressure. All right, we got oil pressure built up from cranking, but I still don't see much fuel in here. And there's some actually in the filter, but what I think I'm gonna do is pull the return line off right here and hook up my vacuum pump and just pump and see if I can pump fuel all the way through the filter, fill up the tandem pump. And after that, it should fire up. I believe that you can do that. You should be able to pull fuel through that pump. Anyway, we'll try it out and see if that will work. Well, I put that return line back on. I wasn't really having much luck. It didn't seem like it was even sucking air or anything through. So I think I'm just gonna cycle the key and work that lift pump. This filter definitely is filling up. So I think it's just slowly filling up. So we just gotta keep working it. One thing you can do, if it was completely empty, I would just pull this T off and you can fill it up with diesel, which actually might do that. Just top it off right now. But you can fill the filter up through that port there, and then you probably don't have to cycle it as long or crank as long. But either way, let's see what we can do to get this thing freaking started up. All right guys, got the fuel filter filled up with diesel and plugged the injectors back in. So if all goes well, it should technically start right now. We're gonna go crank it, see what it does. This is literally the scariest moment in any of these builds you do. The first start's always a little hairy. Yeah, I have heard this motor run before, but we did a ton of work to the motor and wiring, all that stuff. So there's so many things that could go wrong. You just gotta pray for the best. We're gonna go turn that key over and see what happens. Well, here goes nothing, guys. Here we go. She is running. Holy crap, guys, it's alive. I honestly wasn't expecting it to start. For some reason, I didn't think it was getting fuel. The fuel pump when it was running, it kept sounding like there was air. It was sucking up air and fuel, but apparently it wasn't. It was just fuel. It did start, and it is freaking alive. So I would go through and get this cooling system done, clamped, get some coolant in it, but I have some work to do on the cooling system still. I need to figure out the temp gauge, and what I'm planning on doing is using my factory Toyota sensor and tapping a hole into the rear outlet that comes off the back of the head. But the one on this is plastic, so I ordered up a aluminum one from an ALH, and I'm gonna have to do a little bit of work to that. I'm gonna have to take that, there's a piece off the back with the glow plugs, or the coolant glow plugs. So I'll have to take that off, make a plate for that, and weld on or thread in a little nipple or something for one of the heater core lines. So I don't really want to complete this system, bleed it and all that stuff, just to tear it back apart and have to redo it. So I think I'm just going to leave it as is for now without coolant, just so it's going to be a lot easier to do that work to it. But I am so freaking excited. Wiring harness, everything works on the harness. I haven't had to touch a single thing on that harness since I built it on the bench. So excited. Everything sounds really healthy. I'm not trying to run it too long right now, especially because there's no coolant in it. But I want to get my laptop out, check out VCDS, make sure there's no more codes that popped up, make sure everything is A-okay with that. And I'm gonna let it cool off. Obviously it's not very hot, but I don't wanna get it too hot without coolant in it. So I'm gonna let it run for a little bit, turn it off, let it cool off, and then check codes and everything. So let's get the computer out and see if we have any more trouble codes. All right, we got VCDS out. Let's run into, see if any other codes popped up. Glow plug, same glow plug and exhaust temp 1. So something's going off the glow plugs, and that, like I said earlier in the last video, the EGT sensor is supposed to be deleted on this tune, so I'm gonna have to have that looked at by Malone, have them take that off. But we got to figure out what is going on with these glow plugs. All right guys, I am working on the glow plug light. So originally I had it wired to this bulb here, which is the ECT power, which is for automatic tranny. And so how these bulbs work is there's a common power, which is that screw there, and you can follow that run. That feeds the majority of these bulbs 12 volt power, and then you supply the ground to actually turn the bulb on. So I just kind of took a wild guess. I didn't really look at it too hard. This one is actually not 12 volt power here. This one runs all the way down here, up through here, through a resistor, through another something there, and then into this little black box. So I'm not even sure what that's for, but I wasn't getting any 12 volts. So when I supplied the ground for the glow plug light, it wouldn't do anything. So I'm not going to be using that. I decided I'm going to use this center bulb here, the overdrive off, since I'm not going to be using that. I already tested it, and it's got 12 volt power on the bottom here, so we need to supply the ground. So all you got to do is follow these lines here, or these are copper strands which the power runs through, and you can see there's a jump there. That's not a resistor, there's just a straight pin. The ones with the resistors actually have a little diagram or a little picture of a resistor, and you can actually see through this green backing, you can see the resistor through there. So that one doesn't have a resistor. What you can do is just follow that up all the way up to the pin. I think it was a second one over. So that's what we need to hook the ground from the Cantu dash unit that I have up to that wire. So instead of going behind the cluster and cutting the wires and everything, I just grabbed a pin off my parts truck. I'm just going to pull the pin out of the connector, add this pin in to here, and then just extend this wire all the way down to the Cantu dash on, it'll be down by the glove box. So it's actually just hanging down there right now. So right there, we'll just run our wire from our connector here all the way down to there. We'll hook that up and we'll try that, and that should give us a glow plug light. I already got the glow plug wire, that pink one there, run up. So it should be that center bulb right there, the OD off. That should be the glow plug light. Well, turn on a little bit. Another issue I'm having with this Cantu dash is the tack is very, very slow. I'll start it up here in a second and show you guys, but it lags probably 10 seconds or maybe even 20 seconds. So I did talk to them. I'm going to send this one back and have a new one sent out, but I'll start it up and show you guys how slow that tack is. And I suppose if there is something screwed up with it, it could be why that glow plug light, it doesn't come on right away. You can see, and barely turns on. So there might be something messed up in that little unit there. All right, one other thing I want to do is test these glow plugs to see if one of the glow plugs, or actually number one, the one I keep getting code for, is actually bad. So the way you test these is get a multimeter like this, get it on the ohm setting, and this is just an old plug off an ALH, but you want to put the positive, actually probably doesn't matter, but put the positive on the top and then the negative on the body here, and you can watch the ohms. About 0.7, 0.5, 0.7, 0.9, somewhere right in there is right about where you should see. So I'm gonna go and test these. I already tested it, but I want to show you guys. The number one, I'm getting like 2 point something, so it's way out of spec. So I'm gonna see if I can get my 2 fingers down in there and test that and show you guys how far out this one is. So I'm just gonna have to order up a set. I'm just gonna replace them all, but all right, I got this on there. You can see got the positive on the top, and we are like 2.25, 2.24. So that is way out. That is most likely, well, that is why I'm getting that check engine light for the glow plug. So these BHWs are a little weird. They had some recalls on the glow plugs. For some reason they went to a 5 volt, from a 5 volt to a 7 volt, and then later on recalled it again and went back to a 5 volt. So I already pulled one out. These are 5 volts, so just make sure you pull one out. If you're working on a BHW, I'm not sure if any other PDs are the same way, but BHWs, just pull a glow plug out and it'll say right down here on the body, it'll say 5 or 7 volt. All right, let's fire this thing up. I want to show you the tack. Dang, this thing starts freaking quick. Let's see how, see, it still hasn't moved. Come on. Oh, see how slow it is, and you can rev it up and it doesn't move for the same amount of time. It's super slow. So yeah, like I said, I'm gonna send this one back and get a new one. Well, I guess the next thing we could jump on is finishing up the transmission. So we got drive lines here, we got the front, and then the rear is a 2-piece, so we still gotta bolt that together. Got this thing up in the air, so let's get the drive lines on, and I really think that's about it for underneath. Actually, one little skid plate for the transfer case, and that's really about it to finish up the tranny job. All right, we got the VSS, the 4-wheel drive light, which is way up top there, and the reverse light all wired in. Let's drop this thing down and see if everything works. I'm really curious to see how that VSS works, because that's just a adapter I got, I think, from Marlin Crawler to go from a cable to electronic speedometer. So let's drop this truck down and see if that thing works. All right, first things first, let's try the reverse lights. Oh, I can already see them shining. 1, 2, good to go there. And actually, for some reason, I already had this thing in 4-wheel drive, and I saw 4-wheel drive light is on right there. So 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive, we are good to go. Let's fire it up and see if that speedo works. I got the truck lifted up a little bit, so we should be able to just throw it in gear and let her rip. There we go. Got her in second gear idling, 10 miles an hour. Well, I guess the other tire's moving, not that one, but it is in gear and moving, so yeah. I think we are good to go. So we're good to go on that. If you guys are curious about that VSS wiring, and without the Tacoma ECU, it is completely 100% stock. The wiring runs straight from the VSS all the way up through those connectors and into the cluster. It has nothing to do with the ECU. I know some of the diagrams I was looking at, it looked like it was going through the ECU, but I guess not. So we are good to go with reverse lights, four-wheel drive light, and the speedometer. All right, the last thing on the list of things to do today, I know I'm just doing a bunch of random stuff. I'm kind of just waiting for that outlet for the head to finish up that cooling system. But the last thing I want to do is get this battery holder fixed up. You can see with this battery I'm using, it doesn't really fit. It's really supposed to clip onto these edges here, but it's kind of recessed in there. So what I'm going to do, these are just spot welded in here. You see a little spot weld right somewhere in there, you can see. So I'll just drill both of those out. I'm gonna move them in, and then I'm gonna have to bend that whole bracket down a little bit so it actually lays flat across the battery. And then I'll probably end up powder coating this, but I probably won't do it right away because I'm not gonna bust everything out just for that. I do have to redo this, or probably not redo it. I'll probably just take this MAF out and then weld a piece of 3-inch pipe through it because I'm not running MAF anymore. So I will be repowder coating that as well. So I guess once we do that and whatever else I find a powder coat, we'll just do it all at once. So let's get these cut off, moved in, get this thing bent up and fitting right. There it is, battery hold down just like factory. This thing is not moving, so we should be good to go there. Well, that's about it for today, guys. I know, like I said, I want to wait for a few other things before I complete this cooling system and actually get this thing running. Honestly, we could probably even drive it right now. I'd have to go tidy up a few things underneath, lug nuts, and make sure all my control arms and everything are tight. I think I left those loose because I was going to align it, but once we get that rear figured out with the sensor and this other heater core line right here, so this is one we're gonna have to mess with. This is going to the outlet on the back of the motor there. So like I said, we're gonna use that aluminum one, but it doesn't have a output for that side of the heater core, so we're gonna have to make our own and get all that figured out, get coolant in it, get this cooling system bled, and then we can actually go drive this thing and see what it can do. Well, that's it, guys. I really hope you enjoyed it. I am so excited. This thing fired right up. Honestly, I don't know why. This thing starts so fast. I know it's warm in here, but even my other ALH in my Toyota there, this one starts so much faster. It idles so much smoother. I can't wait to drive it and see how the vibrations are. I am using the stock Toyota transmission mount, and I'm using the BHW engine mount. So hopefully there's not a lot of vibrations. I still get a little bit of vibrations out of the ALH. In my other truck there, I do have a set of hydraulic motor mounts and a pretty big rubber tranny mount, and I still get just a little bit. It's not too bad, but a little bit of vibrations. Hoping this one won't be that bad. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope it helps you out. Go drop a comment, let me know. Hope you guys are excited as I am to hear this thing finally run. So go smash that thumbs up button, comment, subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.